Welcome to Bold Talk series where creativity, leadership, ideas, and innovation come together. My name is Ludvik, and today I have a privilege to have a short one-on-one conversation with Thuria Wenbar, CEO and co-founder of Evaro. Thuria, great seeing you and welcome to a Bold Talk series. How are you?
Good, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for joining me. I know you're busy. There's a lot of excitement going on in your company. Can you tell us about the inspiration behind Evaro and what motivated you to start the company?
Ooh, it's quite a long journey. So I've been on this company for doing this thing for quite a while, but I guess I'll have to go quite way back. So I'm actually originally from Baghdad, Iraq. Did the classic immigrant founder journey to the United Kingdom with my family. And in the traditional Middle Eastern view, there's only one real job that you can get, and that's becoming a doctor. So despite loving coding as a kid, really enjoying that space, I actually ended up going to medical school. I graduated in 2017, absolutely loved medicine, really loved people, but was very frustrated by the way that healthcare was actually being delivered in the United Kingdom, specifically in the emergency departments. So I would routinely come home and complain to my partner at the time, who was a pharmacist, about how many people I was seeing that were there for minor health issues. So you've got an accident and emergency department that is stretched thin, but people are coming in with, having forgotten their diabetic meds because they're now doing a beach holiday in this particular location of the world, or it's a kid with an asthma attack. These are all very relatively minor issues that are very easily avoidable, but the rest of the wider healthcare ecosystem wasn't set up to support those individuals. So although it was minor from an A&E perspective, where you're dealing with car crashes and heart attacks, it was important enough for the person to say, right, I'm going to spend 12 hours overnight in the hospital. And so I would come home, I would complain to poor Oscar. And at one point, Oscar got fed up. I was like, why don't we do something about it? And so we did. We built a bit of technology that we initially wanted to plug into the NHS, into their 111 telephone system. If someone wanted some medication, like you're talking minor, super low risk medication, and we tried to sell it, and they were like, "Who are you?" Turns out the NHS does not buy stuff from two people teams. Who would have guessed? 7 years later, that kind of makes sense. Back then, I was like, "Oh, this makes so much sense. Like they should definitely say yes to this." Instead of accepting that as a no, we took all of their reasons why they didn't want to work with us, and we ended up pivoting into the private healthcare space. We built a platform that let people buy prescription medication online without having to see their doctor. So you'd go online, we'd answer a quiz, literally an asynchronous consultation. You'd pay for your item. We're heavily regulated, so we do a lot of background checks, and then we'd mail the medication out to the person. We got a 2,000 square foot warehouse. We started working with like 3 people. And I think on our first day, we had something like 9 sales. No marketing, really ugly website, low trust, but it just kind of spoke to the desperation that was in the industry and how much there was a need. Huge credit to Oscar, who did all the pharmacy regulatory side. I did the first version of the code, the first version of the clinical elements. And then 7 years later, we're now in a 12,000 square foot unit and scaling.
Wow. That's that's truly amazing. I mean, you truly you identify the problem, and you also identify how painful this problem is.
On
And
many levels. It's
yeah,
painful from like the patient's perspective, and actually it is also painful from a clinician perspective, because you don't want to waste your time dealing with someone who comes to the emergency department who's got a migraine, but you've got to, because they've come to the emergency department, you have to make sure it's not a stroke. So you know it's a migraine, but your indemnities and everything around that means you're just going to be extra certain. So you're going to put them into a CT scan, right? You're wasting so many resources.
wow. Are are there any platforms similar to yours in the marketplace? And if yes, how are you differentiating yourself from them?
Really good question. Yes, we're not the first ones to do this. I think the most comparable competitor would be TruePill. So they are doing pretty much exactly the same thing, but in the US, and they run the back end services for companies like Hims, New RX, a few others. across the US. I imagine actually what we do is quite comparable. The biggest difference between Truepill and us, apart from demographics, like they're in the US, we're in the UK, is actually the way that we run our technology is like a single line of code. So in the same way that you would embed PayPal payment services on a third-party website, we do that for healthcare. So you could be any brand, you can put in this single line of code, and all of a sudden, bada bing, bada boom, you've got a digital health arm where an iframe pops up, the whole healthcare process heavily goes into that pathway. In the same ways, payments with PayPal, all the sensitive financial information goes directly to PayPal. We do the same thing. We collect all that information directly to us, and then we're able to process it. Our competitors give the API calls to the other companies, then they build up the designs. They're able to make it look and feel a little bit more like those brands, but there is that element of data security.
Yeah. Now, cross borders, how do you see that part? Is there a challenge given the fact it's very heavily regulated?
We have the privilege of having incorporated the business and starting it all before Brexit. So our MHRA licenses allow us to go to Europe, which is probably where the next step will be for us. There are undeniably going to be difficulties because every territory has their own small nuances. But ultimately, you're doing it in the best interest for the patient, right? We're not trying to build something fast or unsafe. It's being built to be usable and to be there for the long term. So what's best practice in one country might be above and beyond what their bare minimums are, and therefore it will actually scale quite easily across the board.
Yeah. I was chatting with you earlier regarding the this bold talk, and you mentioned about the coping with the growth, right? And so how do you manage the tension between scaling rapidly and maintaining innovative solutions for customers?
Um, with difficulty is the honest answer. I think we're not quite there yet. I literally sat on a stage yesterday where I was technically classed as a scale up, and I was like, oh, I can't believe we made it here. Um, yeah, like it was a pinch me moment. I think it's through iteration, trial and testing. So at the moment, some of the ways that we're succeeding in this space is when we have ideas, we lean on Amazon's PR FAQs. So we have a 2-page document rather than a 6-page document that essentially says, this is the idea. The team all get together to work out what is needed for this to be true, what are all the instructions that are required for the outcomes, and then you hand that over to the devs to build it. It gets signed off, it goes back. That whole process takes about a week, and then it means that your next 3 weeks are relatively structured. People know what they're actually building. They've got the outcomes. They understand what the end goal is. The path to get there might not be what I would have built. Often it's better when they build it. I don't comment on my code. Yes. That's probably one of the best ways that we've moved in our development pipelines, is being able to write out outcomes really clearly. Because I think actually the best example I can give is an example we had in our pharmacy when we first started, of how instructions differ between what one person thinks and one person does. So we buy a medication called azithromycin for chlamydia treatment. It comes in boxes of 3 tablets in a blister pack. The treatment course is 4 tablets. So what you need to do is you need to cut a single blister from another tablet and put it in. I told a team member, hey, can you please do this and put 4 tablets into each box? They cut every single tablet, like every single one. So they put 4 loose tablets into the box. So the instructions, I said, put 4 tablets into a box. They achieved it. I would have done 3 in the one blister pack with 1 tablet. They put 4 loose tablets. And at the beginning, I used to be really annoyed by these intricacies of human language. Over time, I realized actually doesn't matter. It's still the same time frame. It's still the same outcome. And especially with code, more so than within elements within the pharmacy, often it is like other team members' knowledge within what's going on in the development world is better than mine now. I spend so much time outside of code that it's quite interesting to see how they come up with the solutions.
Yeah. Now, what major trends do you see shaping the future of the market that you guys are in and operate?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think there's three big trends that are happening at the moment. The first is this push towards self-service healthcare. And the way that I would equate that to is what's happened to online banking is moving to healthcare. So if you think about banking 20, 30 years ago, before online, before ATMs, before SMS banking, right?
Yeah.
Like really going far back, you'd have to get into your car, drive all the way to the bank, wait in a queue, speak to a cashier, and then be able to ask, oh, could you please transfer £50 to my mum?
Gee, I forgot how it was back then.
Now, applying for something like, it's a really highly regulated industry, lots of risks involved, but you could get a loan within 2 minutes just from your own online banking. You fill out a few forms, it connects other bits together. There you go, bada bing, bada boom, you're approved for your loan. So highly regulated industry, super self-service, and it's freed up and democratized access to understanding people's finances. Now, 30 years later, 4.6 billion people use online banking. And I think that's really what's happening to healthcare. There are elements where we've gone kind of probably diverted a little bit in the middle. So we've got lots of telehealth video consultations. The reality was banking wasn't fixed with video consultations to the cashier. So I think that's a temporary part of the current healthcare journey. And we'll move more towards this self-service model with lots of connections into people's existing, in the UK, their GP health records for their NHS, in other countries, whatever the healthcare systems would be there. So that's one of the big shifts, is self-service. The second shift, I think, actually comes into the customization of medication. So specifically, our target market at the moment is the United Kingdom. And the way that healthcare works is you get the NHS, the National Healthcare System, decides on the frameworks of how to treat medications, where often the first line medication is the cheapest medication that's been negotiated by NHS contracts, rather than what's the best. So as we are moving more towards this self-service element, where there will be people who will choose to pay to be outside of the system, I think there will be more opportunity for them to be choosing what is best for them rather than what is cheapest. Best examples I can give for that is things like menopause. The cheapest medication for that under the NHS is antidepressants. It has a vasodilation effect, so it opens up the blood vessels. It helps with hot flushes. It's about a 40p drug, 20 to 40p. There's a much better medication. It's a hormone replacement therapy. It's a spray that goes on the inside of your arm. So low side effect profile, really helps people, is the hormone replacements that they are missing through the menopause period. But the cost of that is about £12. So the price difference means if you are serving the entire nation, you would have to choose whatever's cheapest. But if you were, as an individual, are choosing for yourself, you would choose what is best for you, whether it's based on your genetic profile, your past medical history, every other contributing factor.
Yeah.
And the last thing I wanted to say is actually this movement of the collection of data. So we've got, we had the IoT wave, so Internet of Things. You've got all of your medical devices in your, your data capturing in your Apple Watch, different sensors. You've got people now being able to own a lot more of their data. So I think that will be able to be fed into the normal health records to be able to work out, are you on the right treatment? Are you not? What needs to be changed?
Yeah. Well, I truly believe it's all about preventive health, right? If you can look at the data and look at the patterns of data, because each of our bodies are designed uniquely different, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes people say, "Oh, don't eat broccoli; it's not good." Well, broccoli is not good for your body, but it's really good for someone else, right? And the list goes on. Now, out of all those three, what excites you the most about the future?
I actually think it's the combination of the three.
Okay.
So, sorry, I know it's not the answer that you wanted, but the fact that we're able to move into this world where this power of compute and the speed of compute and the cost of compute, we're able to make decisions that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to make as a human being on a scale that is so much greater than a one-on-one 15-minute doctor to patient relationship. So now you can plug in all this data. You can then work out what is best for the person, and you can deliver it through this asynchronous self-serve pathway.
Yeah, amazing. Now, obviously, the innovation comes with trying, and when you try, you keep failing and failing over and
Mhm.
over again. What is your approach to failure when you try new things?
I don't really think it's counted as failure if you've learned something. That's pretty much our approach. So we do experimentations. And they vary based on what you want as the outcome. So sometimes it's simple things like smokescreen tests where you're trying to work out, should we build a feature? And what you do is you click a button, you create a picture with a button on it, and you just analyze how many people click this button. Each time they click it, it says it's broken. Oh, we're sorry, we don't do it. Like, it's broken, come back again tomorrow. And then that in its own right tells us, should we build it, should we not? Sometimes we do that, and technically it fails because no one clicks on the button. But you've learned so much from that process. So we try and do lots of low-cost tests where they might not get the results that we originally hypothesized. But that's not really failure because you've learned something.
Yeah, really good point. I'm truly enjoying this conversation. I wish we had like an hour to go for with this, but this is a short format, so I'll keep it with this. Now, Threya, what does bold, the word bold, mean to you?
Going for it, I think. When I, as founders, we have a very high action bias. So you lean towards just doing. And I
Mm.
think that's really what bold means for me. It's just doing it.
Yeah, don't overthink. I learned this from one of my mentors. Like time, it's a great food to fear. If you give time to the fear, it just gets you. And so you
Yep.
just got to do it. Don't think it too much because otherwise it's going to fear and you're going to back up. Good one. Love it. Freya, always be bold. Congrats on your successes and achievements. Thank you for joining me in this Bold Talk series and look forward to seeing you again soon. Until next time, take care, be great, and be bold always.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Cheers.